South Korea produces superior films with its content and consistency when compared to the rest of the world, at least in my opinion. It feels like South Korean filmmakers somehow managed to capture the elusive art of producing great and original content within a commercial confinement. I'm not saying that all South Korean movies are great. There are always exceptions, but the industry manages to produce at least 4 or 5 remarkable films a year. There are several aspects, technically and otherwise, that make those films remarkable. Today, I'm going to talk about a less discussed aspect that I've noticed in several South Korean films that elevates those movies to another level. It is the fact that they make a strong political statement in a very subtle manner. There are going to be major and minor spoilers for all the movies that I'm going to discuss here, so you've been warned. I've listed the names of all the movies that I discuss in this video in the description below, so you can check that out if you want to be safe. Moving on. The great Greek philosopher Aristotle once said, "Man by nature is a political animal." He said this because we are a social creature with the power of speech and reasoning. This very nature runs at the heart of all our societies. The freedom to express us through the means of art must be then political. The ones that are aware of this and is done intentionally to shape the society or to simply point out the shortcomings of its society is to be celebrated. Memories of Murder is one of my favorite South Korean films. It is written and directed by Joon-ho Bong in 2003. It talks about a serial killing spree in a small town in the province of Gyeonggi and the struggle faced by the local detectives and a detective from Seoul to crack the case. It is often compared to David Fincher's Zodiac in its treatment and especially for the ending. In Memories of Murder, the detectives never manage to find the killer or the purpose. The crime is unresolved, much like Zodiac. The movie ends with one of the detectives, after many years, visiting the crime scene. He is now a salesman. He learns from a local girl that someone else just visited the same spot, indicating that the killer might have visited his own crime scene. It was a very chilling and twisted end to the story, and it blew me away when I first watched the movie. But after many rewatches, I discovered that there was another narrative along with the main narrative. The main narrative is about the serial killer and the detectives, while the secondary narrative is about the changing political scene in South Korea. In traditional South Korean culture, much like most of the Asian cultures, family and societal bonds and duties are valued much more than anything else. Isolation, loneliness, and resulting damages are purely designated to Western society, where family values are diminishing and the individuals are isolated. A sense of purposelessness creeps up in those societies. Yet in South Korea, in a small town no less, a serial killer shows up, first of his kind. Serial killing in its very nature points out to a sense of purposelessness, an act driven by isolation mostly. The movie is based upon real-life serial killings that took place between 1986 and 1991. It was the first known case of serial murders in South Korea, and it took place in a changing political scene. It was around 1987 that South Korea's military regime held its free elections, and Seoul Olympics took place in 1988, and other major changes took place in the country that paved way for the modernization of South Korean society. The movie never addresses or acknowledges these political changes, but still the implications were prevalent throughout the film. Even at the end, the detective, when talking to his kid over the phone, asks him whether he studied or stayed up all night playing video games. This is an indication of a changed and modernized society. Similar statement is made in the recent South Korean zombie thriller Train to Busan, which is written and directed by Sang Ho-yeon. It is an outright entertaining commercial zombie film. It is a violent and thrilling ride. Zombies invade a moving train, which can't be stopped anywhere. A paper-thin Hollywood plot, right? But it doesn't stop the filmmaker from etching out three-dimensional characters, nail-biting screenplay, stunning visuals, and an underlying political statement about class divide, the invisible line that separates the wealthy and the normal, and a point about media manipulation by corporate owners. The very conflict of the film stems from corporate carelessness and its effort to bury the secret by manipulating the media. It is very similar to an incident in South Korea in 2014 when 300 people, mostly teenagers, died in a ferry accident because of a similar corporate selfishness, as the company decided to overload the ferry to save more money. It is a national tragedy. The primary narrative in this film is a zombie thriller, but the underlying political statement is about corporate carelessness and its consequences. All of this was buried under a fun summer flick. Even when Joon-ho Bong made his way to Hollywood by Snowpiercer, a post-apocalyptic thriller that's set in a moving train, much like Train to Busan, he talked about class divide with much less subtlety and much more complexity. There are several films like Mother, The Yellow Sea, Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, Lady Vengeance, all have an underlying political tone. Even the fun ones like 2015's Veteran and 2016's Violent Prosecutor spoke politics and critiqued the society in some way or the other. And this, I think, makes South Korean cinema stand miles apart from its counterparts. This intentional political statement and a critique about its own society in the midst of a great story and performance provide a life to the film. And the great part is that it is not exclusive to the South Korean society. It also speaks to the rest of the world with the same intensity, as most of our problems are the same, regardless of our race and culture. South Korean films are proving that cinema is not just for mindless fun or escapism. It can also be a tool to shape, change, or just point out the limitations of an ever-changing society. It can even be all of it at once, and great art can be entertaining. That's it for this week's episode. As you might have noticed, I am a big fan of South Korean cinema. My favorite South Korean movie has to be Memories of Murder or The Wailing. I can't decide between the two. I would love to know what your favorite South Korean film is. Leave that in the comment section below. I have also attached a link to a playlist of my recent videos. If you liked what you saw, please like and hit the subscribe button below so that you're automatically notified when I upload a new video. Thank you so much and see you soon.